back to Women Making Moves, where we celebrate the moves that women are making. My name is Amy Pons. I'm a master certified life coach and an energy healer. I'm joined today with Tiya Lacroix. Tiya Lacroix is the Senior VP of Innovation and Growth at Impensa, a healthcare supply chain data service partner. She is an award-winning healthcare executive with nearly 2 decades of experience working with hospitals, both large and small. Passionate about driving efficiency and automation, she has a dedicated track record of delivering millions of dollars in savings for hospitals across the country. Through her years of work in healthcare distribution, master data management, and e-commerce, she brings a wealth of knowledge to the healthcare community. Tiya also serves on several leadership committees, including the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society for Visionaries of the Year and fundraising for Oklahoma Women in Technology. Tiya, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
One thing that I wanted to ask real quick. So, savings for hospitals. May I ask, then why do they charge so much?
So it's kind of one of these crazy things where in healthcare is kind of a mess, and everybody says that, but they lack transparency. And one of the biggest things that my hospitals deal with is that they truly don't know exactly how much it costs to perform a procedure. So what does it actually cost to deliver a baby? What does it cost to have a total knee replacement? And so they kind of guess a lot. And so we are doing this with my family right now, and I've been on the supply chain side for the longest time. So I've been on the front end. And so I've had a very myopic view of healthcare. So I've been very on my hospitals for years about trying to be good stewards of how they purchase things and make sure that they purchase things on contract. Meanwhile, I didn't realize that there was this whole other side of the world in healthcare that gets into your third-party payers and insurance companies and then the reimbursement side. And so that's where I've spent like the last couple of years trying to follow the money and trying to understand exactly why things are so expensive and why things cost as much as they do. And unfortunately, the only answer I have been able to come up with is greed. And that's the bottom line, is the money and the data all goes back to greed and the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing.
Wow. So it all comes back to that right now. It's interesting. I've had so many conversations, even the past 48 hours. I spent a lot of time with family this weekend, whether it be healthcare or I was talking to my dad about they live in a small town and there's like a local feud going on between Salvation Army and Food Bank. And it literally all comes down always 1,000,000% money.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this on all of my episodes. It's no shock. I'm at this standpoint. We have been skewed in the toxic masculine for so long. And when we talk about the energies of divine feminine, divine masculine is the action, structure, doing, divine feminine, flowing, trusting, believing, knowing, and those two work together in beautiful harmony.
Yep.
Well, I say toxic masculine because it's not only been skewed in the masculine for so long, we're only in the doing and we're only in the what can I get for this?
There you go. Yeah.
And that's where I feel, and this is a big part of why I created Women Making Moves, because the divine feminine is what's going to come in and restore the balance that we need. And by and large, women are the ones out here on the front lines. Women are the ones that are actually going to create the balance, not suggesting that we don't need men or men aren't doing it.
Right.
Either. But in large part, we're the ones out here unsubscribing from that mainstream and saying, all right, how do we really figure this out? And it's money.
Yeah.
So
it's always money and it's always contracts. And it's the way that these contracts are written that force these hospitals into these behaviors that when they take a step back and they're like, wait a minute, is this really what we should be doing? Should we really be outsourcing our anesthesia department so that we can only do surgeries between 9 a.m. and 5 a.m. if I'm a level 1 trauma center? Like those are the questions that I have for these, CEOs and these C-suites that are out here that are non-clinical, making these very clinical decisions for me. And I'm a patient too. I've had 15 surgeries. And so I get very frustrated when folks who don't have a clinical background, but are specifically just looking at the money, try to EBITDA and try to just, nickel and dime my healthcare. And because that's not how we get better. I'm not going to get better just because the ROI says I should be better.
Right? That's the case in every industry right now. So here's the good news. More and more people like you and me, we're out here doing something about it, meaning whether it be educating, whether it be activism, fighting, whatever it could be, the dam's going to break. And I think
Yes.
what we're seeing is money is actually getting to be a point where people are really getting more and more hateful toward money because of inflation. Because it's not only all of this other things that's happening, it's like money is inherently losing its value. It's like not cool.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so like the dam's gonna break. The super toxic traits of capitalism, we're shifting.
Right.
And so it's just going to take more time, and I'll be curious to see how far we get in our lifetime. But it's shifting, and then there's Gen Z who doesn't give a fuck, and they're like, we're coming out swinging.
Right. Yeah, and that's fun because I'm raising my son is 14,
Yes.
and so it's really interesting, and I spend a lot of time with him because one, he's just a great little human I enjoy being around my son, but it's also really fun to hear them talk, and I again, they'll whole fuck around and find out, like that is that whole Gen Alpha, like that is my son, and he may get a little bit of that from me. I mean, like, and so there's a little bit of me that gets really proud when I see him being like such an activist so young, and he's always been that way. And it's not just him; it's all the kids in that whole age group that does make me excited for the youth that is coming up.
Yeah, I do too. And you know what's interesting is someone recently said there's more Gen Z boys or young men are
Hmm.
actually anti-feminism. And I'm wondering if it's because they're not stuck necessarily in binary regardless.
Hmm.
If you think about, and I'll say this for a second, like I'm an intersectional feminist, so I care
Uh-huh.
about the rights of all women, whereas historically we've done a great job of being good white feminists.
Right.
Like it's almost like Gen Z is like, can we just unsubscribe from like any label or title because of
Yeah.
the history baggage is pretty big.
And that's what's so funny because I hear them say that, and I'm like, I'm kind of the opinion. I'm like, well, whatever. If that's what you want to call yourself, I don't care. Because at the end of the day, that has nothing to do with me. Whatever they want to call themselves, that does not affect my day to day. All I can do is sit there and be supportive and make sure that they have a loving environment to grow and become the person that they're meant to
That's
be.
it. That's it.
And I think, and that's where I butt heads with people that are older than me all the time because they're so concerned in, no, you have to be a girl and you have to have long hair and you have to do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, but no, why? Why do
But
we don't
why?
have to? Yeah, but
But
why?
why? I'm trying to help all the big four right now. So Gen
Mhm.
Z, millennials, X, and boomers, like the big ones in
Yeah,
the world right now. It's like I try to help them all understand like we have way more in common than we think, and we could
right,
have cool nuggets from each other. But there is so much anger around the judgment, and they, meaning like the older generations, they were taught there was just one right way to benefit one type of person, and all of us behind them are like, no, we
right.
do not subscribe to that. So I feel that the tide is shifting and we're still all here. So I don't want to banish or cancel anyone, but then,
No.
but it's also like, can we have a second to just talk and try to understand each other? Because again, and I don't get it right all the time, but like if someone in front of me says something pretty rage inducing, I try my best to say, huh, help me understand why you feel that way. Instead of before in my early corporate years, I like would rage back in your face like tenfold. And I'm like, now I've with age and my spiritual journey of love and light, I'm here to make the big changes on a soul level. So it's
Mhm.
deeper than that than just like my ego getting triggered. So anyway, it's a lot.
I will say I was right there with you
Yes.
until the pandemic started and people started arguing about wearing a mask and coughing in front of like people's faces.
Yeah.
And I've been in healthcare for so long and I've sold masks forever, and I had people get in my face and say masks don't work, and I'm like,
Oh
this is
gosh.
why science and education and public education is so important, and why we need to focus on public health
Oh,
and education and get away from that. Because again, we also had the whole ivermectin thing, and I grew up around horses. I live in Oklahoma. I have cleaned stalls most of my life, and I know that ivermectin is a dewormer. That is a parasitic dewormer. And so that is not going to necessarily help for a virus that it lives in your lungs. You know what I'm saying? And so it's one of those things. And when you have like doctors saying, stop coming to the vet store to get the ivermectin, this is not what it's used. It even says on the box, don't use it for humans. But I still have people in my community say, well, ivermectin saved my life. And it gets very frustrating. And so as much as I want to be love and light and be like, I love you, but sometimes I want to say, you're a dumb dumb. Don't do that kind of stuff. It says on the box not to take it. Don't take it.
I'm so proud to be woke. First of all, being woke and like any buzzword, it's gone to the nth degree and
Mm-hmm.
but at the core of it, being woke is actually being aware of
Mm-hmm.
what might be damaging or harmful to a person that doesn't look like you.
Right.
That's all it is. I'm a proud woke.
Well, and I go back, I think it's funny when people use the term woke and then they go back, and I live in the town that I grew up in, and I in our town at one point had like 10 Southern Baptist churches. And listen, we can have a whole discussion about the Southern Baptists and what's going on there, but at the end of the day, I do believe in the Bible in whatever form. I go back to the text of the Bible and what the tenets and what we're told to do as far as like a Christian state and everything that's been taught to me here is that at the end of the day, we are supposed to take care of the sick, the young, and the elderly. We are supposed to take care of the folks that do not look like us, that do not act like us, the folks that we think are beneath. Those are the people that we're supposed to serve. We are not supposed to call them out. We're not supposed to harm them. We're not supposed to hurt them in any way. And so if doing those things gets me called woke, then I wear that badge as proudly as I possibly can, because
Yes,
that's what I was
Taya.
put here to do.
Yes, Taya. Again, we could talk about this for hours, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
that's an example of a person's or people's interpretation. To your point, like if we get down to the basic words, religion is a whole nother, and that has actually turned into huge money makers as well. I mean, that comes down to money too. The ones that have taken it, whether it be dangerous or further out from what it was intended to be. So,
Well, and that's where we've got some politicians in Oklahoma that let their intrusive words win when they talk about folks. So I do want to say next Benedict's name, because they are very important, and what happened to them is unconscionable. And the fact that it happened here in Oklahoma schools is heartbreaking to me. And it's disgusting to me that there are men that we have voted and put into power that get up into public forums and talk about children as being less than. And I don't even want to use the words that he used, but that's not how we speak about children. That's not how we speak about our fellow Oklahomans. And that's not how we treat folks. And so that kind of stuff just eats me alive. And it just breaks my heart that we have folks that get up on, national stage and speak those ugly words.
so
So,
you said their name, Next Benedict.
mm-hmm,
If you haven't heard about Next Benedict, look them up.
mm-hmm.
So to your point, happening in Oklahoma in one of your schools, what's the community? How are you feeling?
So Owasso is a couple hours away from us, and it's something that I work a lot with Oklahoma Women in Technology. We do a lot of outreach into the schools, and so we do a lot of work with young girls or anyone presenting as a woman. We work with them to try to get them into STEAM and to STEM careers. And so as we've been talking about like how can we best serve the girls, it's very difficult here in the state because we have a state superintendent, Ryan Walters, who has led the charge on some really ugly legislation about some things that are going on here in the state. And it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult to maneuver when you've got folks in power that don't deem everyone as equal. And it's a fight every day. That's all I can say is that it's a fight because I'm trying to teach my son to love everybody, but he's constantly being hit with from all different sides, from social media, from other kids in school about that they needed to hate this person because they don't look and act the same way. And so it's just a constant struggle. And it's something that I pray a lot about. We all pray a lot about. And I'm just going to keep speaking up about that. That's not how we behave. That's not how we treat one another. That's not how we raise our kids. And all we can continue to do is to continue to bring light on the subject and to continue to beg and plead and to legislate. And to, I'll be at Innovation Day in April up at the Capitol, hoping to speak to a bunch of legislators to try to get them to tone down their rhetoric and to tone down their words, because little ears and little eyes are watching them and repeating the things that they say and they do. And we need to make sure that we're being good stewards and being good role models for our children, because they watch everything that we do. And so, I mean, that's, like I said, that's kind of where I'm at on it. Like I said, it's just a struggle. It's heartbreaking. And I'm sure there's got to be more that we can do, but it's like, what do you do? And so,
even I was watching a video where by the local police that were talking with Nex after the attack, they were like, well, this wouldn't have happened if you wouldn't have thrown the water. And so it was immediately Nex's fault. That's not true. Like,
and it's not true. And I don't think people realize how much people like Nex deal with. I mean, I think all of us are bullied at one point or another. And especially that age of bullying is really difficult. It wouldn't have mattered what they would have said or done. Nothing would have changed that. Nex had every right to be there.
Their birthright was to be able to safely attend school, receive an education, and be the best Nex that they could be in this world. And we needed their light.
Yes.
If I may, let's have a moment of silence for Nex. May you be at peace. You will not have died in vain.
Absolutely. And that's where, like I said, as we move forward, and I've been really very grateful and thankful to be a part of Oklahoma Women in Technology. The ladies at OKWIT are being very thoughtful, and we have a lot of educators. So let me be very frank. We have a lot of women from all different types of industries here in Oklahoma that make up OKWIT. I think there's over 600 of us now that are a part of this group. And we have a lot of educators, and that's really important. And we have a lot of educators that are being really thoughtful and really having to walk a very thin line because of what's going on in the state, because we have some rules and things that they're having to abide by, or else they could potentially lose their license. So it's one of those things where, as much as I want to, jump out here and say all the things I really want to say, there's another part of me that wants to also protect our teachers and our educators and not make life difficult on them too. So it's a balancing act of holding people accountable and saying, hey, these are not the appropriate words to get your point across, and then being divisive, where they won't work with me.
You just nailed it. Like, so this is the balance that's so critical. It's like not giving someone a pass, but at the same time, allowing a space where they can actually hear us. Don't just like turn off their listener. So it's
Right.
I think what we're talking about, what I'm hearing you say is, and what resonates with me is that any extremity, any extremism in any case is not helpful. Like we try
Right.
to find the balance. Let's try to have a conversation to move forward in a balanced way where we can both have a little bit, like the divisive has just so imbalanced. And again, that's why I feel like so many of us are out here, like we've unsubscribed from a lot of the mainstream culture because we're needing to blaze a new trail and create the new way, whether it be
Right.
any of the topics we've talked about so far. It's just been, they're so imbalanced that we're like, no, we just refuse to do this.
And yeah, and again, it's like, how do we get them to, and that's the thing is that I need these politicians to understand when they use terms like trash, when they use derogatory terms to talk about children, what is the point? When you say, somebody like Nex doesn't deserve to be here. So what are you calling for? What in true, are you saying that those people don't deserve to live? And if those people don't deserve to live, then why are you our leader? Because you're here to govern for all Oklahomans. And I think that's what I need people to understand is that everybody lives here in Oklahoma. And it doesn't matter if you don't agree with how they live their life, they still have the right to life, and they still have the right to live and grow up here, whether or not you like them or not. And your job is not to like them. Your job is to make sure that they're safe and that they're taken care of. That's why you're a legislator. And if you can't do that, then you don't need to be there. You don't need to have that responsibility.
Right. They got into office I'm going to paint a broad brush here. The legislators that you're talking about, and this is in every state and our national government, they got into office to serve and protect one type of person. And that is people who look like them. Anything outside of that, they feel unsafe. And then that's when
Yeah.
they start doing this dangerous stuff. To your point, they've then breached their own commitment of what it means to be out here serving their entire constituency.
Yeah. And it's going to be really interesting in the upcoming years. Almost half of our state is now under tribal control. We are technically under tribal lands. It makes me really happy to
That's
see, the
awesome.
Cherokee and the Chickasaw and the
Yes.
Choctaw, and to be able to see that their lands are actually carved out on the state of Oklahoma. And I think that's really important for our legislators and again, I to our governor too, because our governor loves to sue our tribes. I think it's very important for them to understand whose land this really is, whose
Yes.
land we're on. And
Always
so,
was theirs. It was never
right,
ours.
we are not recognized by our tribe, but we have always said that we are native. But yes, it is not our land, right? We were not the first ones here. And our tribes do an amazing job. So that's one thing I don't think they get enough credit for is our tribes actually do a phenomenal job taking care of their citizens. I have a ton of friends that are different members of different tribes, and just even their health care, their social services, the way that they treat one another, the way that they care about one another is just it is above and beyond. Even the new hospitals that they have built are absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. Like I can't say enough wonderful things about the things that our tribes are doing in our state and how they're contributing positively to our state. I wish our legislator and especially our governor would work more with our tribes versus constantly suing them.
Wouldn't it be cool if the Native Americans started becoming the leadership?
I would love it so much. It would be so helpful. And again, I wish, like I said, there's a lot of things going on in our state. There's a lot of things that make me really excited. There's a lot of great things that are happening in our state, but then there's a lot of things that also give me pause and make me side eye. I want to protect the wonderful things that are being done because we have some really cool ecosystems that are being built here for the future, especially, as far as job market and growth and Oklahoma City, the things that we've done in Oklahoma City the last, 20 years has been phenomenal. Like growing up, Oklahoma City was not a place that you wanted to go hang out on a Saturday afternoon. And now our family goes down like on the weekends for like farmers market in the middle of downtown Oklahoma City. As much as I want to be very hard on our governor and everybody, I do want to praise our tribal and our local leadership because they really are trying to make Oklahoma a wonderful place to live and to raise your family.
You get to feel both. It's to be
And
both.
it's frustrating because and I love my state so much and I'm so proud of being here, but I'm also really hard on them because I expect so much, right? Like you expect so much. And so like when people say things, you're like, don't say that. I don't want people to think we're like that. I mean, because at the end of the day, I mean, I would like to think that we're really not the ugly things that sometimes our legislators say in public media.
Well, so I'm in Illinois. I mean, I think every state you're like cringe. And I don't,
Right.
some days I'm like, I'm just heading out. I'm gonna go to Canada. I don't know, just figure something else out. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, you're really inspiring me to have awareness for how far we've come, but also have a pulse on where we still need to go. And it gets to always be both. And because of people like you, we'll get to have that future that we're heading toward. And what I think is really gorgeous about what you're saying is if we just allowed, from based on what you said about the tribes in Oklahoma, if we gave them the platform to be able to integrate their lifetime upon lifetime upon lifetimes of indigenous culture and just their ways of spirituality and their energy work and like understanding
Mm-hmm.
the earth is a living, breathing creature and this powerful being, that all of the amazingness paired with today's technologies,
Mm-hmm.
like that is the new way forward to be able to make sure this earth sustains for future generations. I feel like we need the tribes to come back and teach, be like, here's how
Oh,
we take care of the land, not abuse it. I would love to see the tribes be in charge.
that's what I'm starting to start working on. I'm really excited for Visionaries of the Year for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society because one of our candidates is with the Oklahoma City Tribal Clinic. Her name is Monica McKee, and she is amazing. And so it's a nonprofit clinic here in Oklahoma City, and they've got one in Dallas as well. And so I can't say enough about the work that they do and that they provide. And so there's a lot of folks here in Oklahoma that are doing a lot of the really hard work to try to make life better for everybody. So like I said, if you have an opportunity to check out the Visionaries of the Year, I'll make sure you have the link. We have 8 candidates and we're raising money. And the great thing about Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, if you're not familiar with them, which I wasn't familiar with them until last year when I got involved, is that 86 cents of every dollar goes back to the patient. So when you're raising money, one of the things when I was looking at different non-for-profits to raise money for, I looked about like how much money went back to the patients, how much money do they actually spend in the communities? And, leukemia and lymphoma, they gave something like $3 million last year to patients. In Oklahoma, we have over 2,200 people that will be diagnosed with some form of blood cancer this year alone. And so leukemia and lymphoma does a lot of work, research, and they give a lot of money, not only to the patients, but they've had more drugs be released into the market than anybody. So they own their own research and then they work with the pharmaceutical companies to get the drugs out to the market. But the thing I'm most excited about Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is that they're working on pediatric cancer. So most folks don't know Leukemia and Lymphoma Society has a project called Dare to Dream, and Dare to Dream is a research project. They are looking at cancer drugs and the dosages of cancer drugs into pediatric patients because right now, pediatric patients get the same dosage of chemo that adults do. And so when they get that same dosage that an adult does in a child's body, it does kill the cancer, but it wreaks havoc on that child's system. And so even if that child beats that cancer, when they become adult, they may have muscle and joint issues, they may have reproductive issues, and life is just a lot harder. So what they're doing is focusing on research to develop unique protocols for each patient that uses smaller dosages of chemo and of drugs to kill the cancer so that they have a better chance of survival after they beat cancer.
Amazing. And then the woman that you stated who is
Monica McKee.
Monica McKee. And then I also want to make sure the 2 tribes in Oklahoma are doing a lot of great work.
There's actually so many. We have the 5 civilized tribes. So you have Cherokee, Choctaw, Seminole. Creek goes by Muskogee now. So it used to be Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole. Creek goes by Muskogee now. But then, like I said, we have the Iowa tribe. We have so many different tribes here in the state, and that they all are getting involved. And that's one of the things is like I was surprised that even the Iowa tribe is their healthcare is getting involved. They are very involved in the Healthcare Information Management System Society here in the state, and the Cherokees are very involved in healthcare. And so it is making me very excited and very happy to see these folks to kind of like charge in because especially here in Oklahoma. And I've even this year is the first year that I've started seeing some of our native healthcare start popping up on some of the best of lists, which I've never seen that before. And that makes me very excited to start seeing some of those hospitals get the recognition that they deserve. I think, like I said, I'm very excited about what our tribal health is doing here in the state.
Amazing. I want to look up more about that and see how I'm sure that's a lot's happening in Illinois too. I'll figure that out. Okay, so we've beautifully talked about a lot of things here in a very short amount of time. I want to go to a post that you made recently, and we're in it. We're in Women's History Month. The meme is, women don't need a Women's History Month. We need equal pay and for men to stop assaulting and killing us. And you write, I'm from Oklahoma, where we desperately want to be a top 10 state in everything, but we're the absolute worst when it comes to women, education, and health. It's really simple, gentlemen, real simple. Tell me more.
Yep. So back, and I can't remember the exact year, we used to have a Oklahoma Women's Coalition. It was a bipartisan group of women here in the state that went after the legislators to get them to enact common sense legislation. And the Oklahoma Women's Coalition did a really great job of giving a lot of data and did a lot of work here in the state to constantly kind of alert us, to let us know kind of where we were at. But I mean, we're ranked dead last in education, in women's affairs, and in healthcare. Our governor wants us to be a top 10 state, but the facts are in Oklahoma, it's, almost 50% of women deal with domestic violence. Most women are going to be, if they are convicted, they are convicted with longer terms than men that are convicted with the same crimes. It's just, at one point in time, we had a legislator that was trying to get a law passed that if a woman was trying to get a protective order, they would give her a gun license at the same time because, every woman wants a gun to be able to protect herself against a man that's threatening to kill herself. Because, it's that kind of thing where, men don't think those things through. They think just by giving us a gun that we're all just going to be able to protect ourselves. And most of us don't want to have to protect ourselves that way. I don't want to have a gun to keep myself safe. That seems silly to me. Yeah. And in education, like I said, we love to spend money anywhere else but education. And it's a fight. It's something that I have been fighting in. I served on our local education foundation where we basically raised money for teachers' classrooms to get them any sort of STEM, any sort of equipment, any sort of software that wasn't covered by the school because our education budget is slashed year after year after year. And I don't know where the money's going, but it's not going to education. And it stinks because our students deserve it. And our teachers deserve it. And our teachers more deserve it. We have some amazing teachers in this state. And I'll just brag on my town. We have some amazing teachers in our town that go above and beyond for their students. And it's because of those teachers and it's because of the public education that I received here in Oklahoma that I've been able to go all across the country and help hospitals and help save, people like Providence and Kaiser's and Integris, millions of dollars by using their own data. And that's because of the teachers that I had growing up that my son now has growing up.
This is probably one of the first years I feel so conflicted about Women's History Month and International Women's Day. Myself, I used to be so proud, so excited. And again, more than one thing can be true at once. Mm-hmm. I am damn proud to be a woman. And my sheer existence every single day is helping others to unlearn the deep ancestral indoctrination of women being the inferior, being the less than. And it goes far beyond women, but I'll stick here for a second. It's women and people of color and this always inferior or less than, and if you're not a white man. And what has come up for me, like on Friday, I got so many texts and messages like, Happy International Women's Day, because I am that intersectional feminist that goes really hard for women. Mm-hmm. And with every message or everything that I saw, I'm like, I find it hard some days to celebrate the both and that I've never been so surrounded by women like you in my life that we're all out here disrupting the norm. And it's also can be pretty isolating because depending on when you kind of started to realize that day to day is not okay or safe for women, that involves, we could have a conversation about calling someone out versus calling them in, but calling out people, men and women, humans around you that say things or do things that are to them innocuous and harmless, and you providing education on the fact that that's not innocuous and harmless. And then egos get involved, their defenses go up, and then suddenly you've lost a friendship, a relationship, something. And so that's where I kind of sit, where I want to be able to, especially people in my life that I care about, I want to give them a safe space to say, here's what I think is okay and here's why. And not, when they say the comment, I'm like, ooh, like every guard in my body kind of gets triggered. And then suddenly they feel unsafe and then we get into a weird spot.
Right. I know. And it's frustrating because it's one of those things where I do call people out sometimes and it makes people really angry. But here's the thing, that when I call people out on social media, it's all stuff that I've either already said to their face and I've already said to their customers. And it's already been it's one of those things where we've all said it at the tables that I've been allowed to sit at. But why is it now? It's because I'm saying it out in public now. But
Yeah, and like also we're not responsible for their comfort. Those who are those who are being harmful, I'm not responsible for your comfort. And depending on how close you like we are to each other, my approach might be different. But it's
Mhm.
just but again, I'm just sitting at this interesting place where for the first time in my life, I've not been as excited about March. March used to be my favorite month, and I don't know if it was rose-colored glasses. I don't know what it was before. And also, I was in corporate for 20 years, and so that was
Mhm.
performative thing for, for March. And anyway, so this year, every single day on LinkedIn, I post a how did we get here?
Mhm.
And it's an ad from the 20s that is shaming a woman in some way. And
Yep.
when you talked about earlier, if you wear something, it's the man's job to keep himself in check. Well,
Mhm.
back to money. In the 20s, the entire reason that women started removing body hair was the men went off to war and the big razor companies lost money because the men weren't here to buy those razors. So they literally put these ads up saying, no one will love you if you have body hair. So check out my LinkedIn every day this month. I'm posting. It's more than just body hair, but it's about like there's ads around. Don't be too thin. Don't be too fat. Don't have too big.
Uh-huh.
Don't be flat chested. And so the vibe every single day this month is here's how we got here. And then
Mhm.
I post like a current day ad that shows like progress, but we still have some ways to go. So anyway, it's hard for me sometimes to be so excited. I do know, I am aware we've come a long way. And
Yep.
especially when you get into circles of friends, family, where everyone feels safe, I guess, in the past, to keep the peace, you might not say something when somebody says something egregious. And now I'm more willing to say, ooh, did you know that's harmful and here's why? And then people
Mhm.
will be like, well, I can't say anything around Amy. Well, that's yours, not mine to do,
Right.
you know?
It's one of those things like the more you travel and the more you get out of your little hamlet of wherever you live, that little space that you live. I had an opportunity to do that in the last decade. And I got to travel to all these like West Coast, these really scary cities that everybody would, oh, pray over me every time I would leave to go to places like Seattle and Portland. I'm like, it's Seattle and Portland, shut up. But again, these are you talk about biases and you talk about like a certain age and a certain generational biases. People hear you're going out to LA or you're going to Houston or you're going to New Orleans and they're like, oh, I'll pray for you because those are scary cities. Those are not scary cities. I used to go to the hospitals in every single one of those cities by myself as a woman, travel by myself, never once was messed with. I've been more messed with here than I ever have in any one of those other towns, those big scary cities have all been lovely and nice. And so I want people to get out of that mindset and being able to have being able to have that experience and to be able to travel by myself to those places and to meet these people. It's given me a different perspective coming back here. And so when you hear these biases and you hear these things, these ridiculous things that fall out of people's mouths, I'm now to the point where when somebody says something derogatory about another country, I snap in and I'm like, no, you can't say that. Don't say that. And then I hit them with all the facts. And then it's like,
Yeah.
to your point, it's like, oh, we can't talk to Tiya anymore.
Because
She's going to get offended.
it's that narrative
Mm-hmm.
I hear most older people saying, everyone's so sensitive today, we can't say anything. And I say, is that true? Or is it that they've always been uncomfortable and they haven't had the innate, whether it be, I don't want to say courage because I don't want to say it's their fault, but they haven't felt safe to say
Mm-hmm.
that harms me. I don't like that. And they care more about keeping your peace than their own. So
Mm-hmm.
it's likely they've always felt uncomfortable, but they've kept the peace. So again, allowing both things to be true. I think that one or more people in a conversation feels unsafe, and it depends on how much you can work together to both feel safe, not just
Right.
one. So
Right.
that's
And
what we're
it,
out here doing.
And it's not it's not being insensitive. You say, hey, don't talk to me like that. I don't like how you use
Right.
your words. That's not being sensitive. That is drawing some boundaries because
That's
people say some
boundaries.
wild things and they think it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like,
Oh,
what are
yeah.
you doing?
What are you doing? So that's what we're out here doing. This is what Women Making Moves is about. This is what we're out here doing. This is what we're helping understand and educate. And I love the balance that you're talking about. We're both walking that balance and helping people understand where we're coming from, not just not burning it down, but it all needs to be burned down, but people getting
Right.
outside, all that. So, okay. So as we start to wind down, this has been such a fast hour, us being states apart. What could we do more together to rally? And then also, what would you say to people? And I think, again, I know that are adamantly opposed to anything that you're saying this past hour. Like, help me understand that duality.
Well, so to the folks that I would say that are adamantly against what I'm saying, I would say that I find it silly because, again, I find that we all tend to prosper whenever we work together. And so working against me is probably not going to be your best bet. Because we didn't get to talk about it, but the one thing I'm about to do is a lot of the stuff that I do in healthcare, I'm finally being able to put up or shut up and be able to show my work on how be able to hold people accountable to what they say they do. So for those that don't want to help, I would say that you're going to be replaced, and we're going to find other replacements for you, because typically in healthcare, I find there's one or two thoughts of leadership. There's the leadership that loves me and brings me in because they know that I'm going to help them and I'm going to make them look good and I'm going to make them prosperous. And then there's the other folks that don't let me in because they know that they're doing wrong and they're going to end up in jail. And so that's really the only two options. And so one, I'm very excited about the things that we are doing. And so I would say anybody that is sitting on the sidelines saying that what they could do, or what if they wanted to get involved, even though we're states away, there are tons of programs, national and both local, where you can get involved. Like just last week on Friday, I was able to volunteer at our local steam engine lab. And so it was started by a lady who, she was in architecture, and now she has created all of these lesson plans and goes out to schools all over the state and gets children involved in STEM and learning about just getting them to use like objects in different ways, and being able to not just coding, and being able to use found objects. And it's really cool to see all of these folks in these communities finding these little niches and things that need to be done and just stepping up and filling them. And so I would say that, if you have the heart for that there is places all over your local community that need your talents and need your body. Like they need you there. They need your hands. And so I would just encourage folks to get involved more and be more involved in their local communities and in things that they can help out with. Because I know that makes me feel better when I feel like things are like out of my control, and when people are constantly telling me no, I go find something that needs to be done. I go find somebody that needs help, and that makes me feel better. So, and that's all I can do right now is, just control what I can control.
Yeah, no doesn't exist in my book. I'm like, all right, we'll talk later. And you're absolutely right. So what's interesting, I really vibed with what you just said, because when I was in corporate and I didn't feel like I was on the front lines of anything really important. And now these days I'm on the forefront of intersectional feminism, but I'm on the national team for workplace psychological safety. So there's actually a piece of legislation that's been written that hold employers accountable when there's been a psychological abuse event in the workplace. Today there's no law. We need a law. So to your point, that's what I do is like now every single day I feel and I know I'm doing the things that will create that balance and shift us into the new world, into the new way of working, into the balance that we've never seen in this lifetime. And you're absolutely right. It's like when you feel out of control or you feel like you're hitting a wall, go find something that is working, that you can make a difference in. So where can we find you?
So right now I'm on LinkedIn mostly. That's where I spend a lot of my days because, like I said, I'm growing my network. Like I said, I've been mostly here in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. That's primarily where I have worked the most with hospitals. And then, like I said, I do a lot of work with Impenza. Impenza advisors are amazing. So we are about to release our Cost Cloud app. And so that is data as a service. So that is where you will find me. You will find me in my hospitals helping hospitals drive out waste, fraud, and abuse, and holding their suppliers accountable.
Closing remarks as we wrap up.
Just thank you. Thank you for having this podcast, for having this space, allowing me to come on and speak. It's been so much fun. And this is really special what you're doing. So thank you for what you're doing. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Tiya.